total drama.
Oh man, I just knocked over my camera. I'm picking it up. Sorry about that.
Hi my lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be something that is somewhat anticipated for me to post about on this channel. That is total drama. I've gotten a lot of requests over time. I think I've only done one total drama video, which was like a ranking. The height of my total drama hyperfixation was literally the period of time where I was still kind of figuring out what to do with my content, and like when I fell out of that hyperfixation, because come on, we don't have any new content right now, so it is a little rough to be a total drama stan. I swear to God, every fandom I'm in is like dead or dying. Like Melanie Martinez stan, Clone High fan, Total Drama fan, Monster High, except for that just got revived. I can't think of any more. But you know that feeling when there's a lack of content and you kind of just lose interest, even though you were already interested in something where there was like no new content. But with the new seasons, I know I'll kind of get back into it, end up rewatching old seasons, and more videos will be to come. But like a week ago, I had an idea for a video, and it was just kind of like me wanting to re-immerse myself in the show since I haven't like watched it in, I would say, like a year-ish. And although it was the least voted thing on the poll, it ended up being what we're going to talk about today, because I have to push off the tdas video because literally I don't know how I'm going to film it. I mean, I know I'm going to film it with my camera, but I have to figure out like a face cam. I think I'm going to use my Mac. It's just a lot. Like, I've never done a gameplay and I want it to actually be a good video.
But at least we're talking about total drama.
I kind of hinted at this in my last total drama video, which was like the song tier ranking, that Courtney is a favorite character of mine. I liked her as a kid too, not nearly as much as Gwen, but as I rewatched and got like obsessed with the show in recent years, I really have just started to appreciate her character a lot more. And with that, I've been able to see just how dirty she's been done, especially in All Stars. Now, collectively as a fandom, total drama fans do not like All Stars. It's just a bad season. It has bad writing, the character selection for an all-star cast was horrible, and let's be real, this season should have realistically had the old episode format, which had, I think it was 26 episodes, I want to say, versus the 16 episodes format, which also shortens the episodes. And how are we going to have an all-star cast without the fan favorite characters? Like, Owen? Whether you like Owen or not, he is a fan favorite, okay? He's done no wrong. Even for like the newer gen seasons, like the characters like Sam, why was Sam brought back? I don't know, the selections were just weird. I didn't like it. I should have made a list ahead of time, but in my notes I didn't put a list of characters like I was expecting to be on here. I feel so dumb right now. The perfect example for this, what I was talking about, would have been Lashana. Characters like that where it's just like, they're so clearly fan favorited and they were not included in this season. I just feel like the selection is very random. That's a good way to put it. I can't think of off the top of my head literally characters I would picture in this season besides Owen, but like there's a lot of characters that just come to your mind when you think of total drama, and so many were just left out of this. But in a way we can be appreciative of it, I guess, because all the characters in this season got derailed one way or another. There are a plentiful amount of videos about that topic on YouTube, so today we're just going to be focusing on a small fraction of where this show all went wrong. The episode Sundae, Muddy Sunday. Which is why I mentioned Courtney, because this episode, if you've ever seen it before or you haven't, is all about Courtney and the way they just absolutely slaughtered her character. All because the writers did not want her to win. They just wanted to get rid of her. Take this with a grain of salt because I can't remember where I read it from, but Courtney was actually supposed to win this season, and the writers had a disagreement about her winning, so this was the solution.
How did we get here?
How do you go so terribly wrong? It's like they decided to just trash her, like slander her name completely and ruin her character arc that she had this season for all to get rid of her and eliminate her. And that is why to date, most fans consider this the worst total drama episode. And it's nice to see we can all agree on something, considering I know there's a plentiful amount of people who do not like Courtney. But like her or not, we can see in this episode, she deserved better by the writers than this. I mean, this could possibly, if you think about it, be the last time we see her because we're getting a whole new cast. So today we're going to be diving into Sundae, Muddy Sunday. Obviously, total drama fans have beaten this topic with a stick so much. So for my take on it, I'm going to be focusing on the gwourtney moments in this specific season, how they rekindled their friendship, and how the writers just absolutely destroyed that. That character arc was for nothing. The only thing like that makes me want to go back and rewatch this season, and even kept me sane going back to like holding myself hostage to rewatch this, was the fact that, oh, I'm gonna get to see Gwourtney again. It was nice to see the recovery of their friendship. I mean, it doesn't come without flaws. It wasn't perfect, but... So without further ado, let's dive into episode 11 of Total Drama All-Stars, Sundae Muddy Sunday. So throughout episodes 1 through 3, we notice Gwen's like immediate fixation on making things right with Courtney, and her annoyance for her boyfriend's obsession with his ex. More specifically, like what Courtney's saying about him, what Courtney's thinking about him, how Courtney feels about him, that type of thing. It's
fucking weird.
Meanwhile, Gwen is trying to do nice things for Courtney, but it's really to no avail. It kind of becomes a running joke with Chris about how she keeps screwing up.
I didn't mean to— Gwen. So evil. You are definitely on the right team. Listen up, campers, because I have a shocking announcement to make. Gwen didn't accidentally, on purpose, serve Courtney an ouchie today.
The day's not over yet.
In episode 2, she accidentally steps on like a booby trap type thing from the challenge that ends up like getting trash all over Courtney. In episode 3, when Courtney gets switched teams, she's welcoming her to the team and trips over this bucket of leeches, which falls onto Courtney and even picks her a flower?
I'm sorry about the way the whole Duncan thing went down. Yeah, here, I picked these just for you.
Achoo!
Oh no, you're allergic?
Told you you're a villain.
I know what you are. But it isn't until episode 4 that she truly like reveals to us that she really came back for Courtney to make things right. And of course, Courtney is just conveniently standing outside the outhouse with an umbrella. It's apparent beforehand, but this clip is really important because it shows us, you know, Gwen is actually serious about this. Like, she's not doing this for Duncan or anything like that. Like, she genuinely wants to fix things, and she keeps messing up, and she's just really distressed about it. All this despite the fact that in the beginning when the contestants are being revealed, Gwen states he wasn't her boyfriend at the time in reference to Chris McLean calling her a boyfriend stealer. You know, season 3, the whole like love triangle. Even though we all know that is clearly not the case, and even herself in World Tour knew that too.
Oh, what am I doing? The moment I finally become friendish with Courtney, I kiss her boyfriend. I'm a horrible person. If it happens again, I'll tell her.
Bestie turned boyfriend stealer, Gwen.
He wasn't her boyfriend at the time! For the last time, Duncan and Courtney were over before he and I started. You can't steal a boyfriend if the boy is free! Hey, even though I technically didn't do anything wrong...
That's for kissing my boyfriend!
That's for him not being your boyfriend when he kissed me!
Now this is one of many continuity errors in this season and like character derailments, as I mentioned earlier. Though I won't be digging into all that today. There are plenty of videos on the subject though. I mean, there are a lot of Gwen haters for a reason. It just really makes her character look bad. And I think this is mostly because there are all new writers on All Stars. It's not like the veteran writers from the first seasons. So these people just did not care enough to follow what was already canon. Anyways, this goes on until episode 5 when she decides to finally dump Duncan, which is like, why? I mean, obviously it's cause Duncan is still obsessed with his ex.
Tell me.
Tell you what?
You know, now that you and Courtney are on the same team, what has she said about me?
Are you kidding me? How does such a big ego fit inside such a teeny tiny brain? She hasn't said zip about you.
And God, I could really make a whole video on just this love triangle and how it truly infuriates me to my core. It always has. However, I just feel like it made me realize they did so much damage to these characters, all for Gwen and Duncan to get together, which isn't Fresh TV's fault. This is actually a Cartoon Network-led decision for this show. That's why we got the shitty Gwent breakup in action, which is a whole other video. They made him out to be so crazy. Like, what? Like he was some kind of freak? For no reason, when he was not. All for Duncan and Gwen's relationship in season 3, just for the writers to break them up again. To be honest, I never wanted them together, but they destroyed so much for nothing. But this is only in the beginning because Duncan and Courtney switch teams in episode 3.
At least now you have to stop blanking me and admit I exist.
Yeah, You exist. So what?
So Gwen and Courtney are now on the same team, the villains team together. The villains and heroes thing is another thing. Why? In theory, it's like kind of a good idea, but like I feel like it kind of ruins the aspect of like characters like Heather, where she had people on her own team that she saw as competition, even though they were a team and they weren't merged yet. So this ends up giving Gwen the chance to really try and make it up to Courtney, and this ends up being a success because in episode 5, when Courtney is convinced Gwen wants to sabotage the challenge for not being gullible enough to cross one of those like raggedy rope bridges. But the plot of this episode is basically they're doing a nighttime challenge and the animals are put under this weird moon spell. Even Heather!
Good work, guys. We're halfway to the finish line.
Anyway, but they're put under this weird spell, so when the team is like almost back to the finish line, or they're literally there, like Courtney turns around and is like,
None of that Gwen is not here yet.
and then this deer comes out of nowhere and just starts attacking her. You know who comes in to save her though? Gwen!
Seriously? You saved me.
You'd do the same if our positions were reversed.
This is before their alliance. We'll obviously get to that, but this is the first episode where they really start to rekindle their friendship, so this like made Courtney kind of think twice about Gwen. And they kind of have this like moment with Gwen being like, look, like if you tell me how to vote tonight, I'll do it, da-da-da. I can't remember the rest.
Hey!
Quiet. Look, I ended it with Duncan, and I am done putting boys ahead of friendships. Tell me how to vote tonight, and I'll do it. I swear.
And even share some laughs in episode 7, although Chris attempts to set them up for failure.
Courtney?
There must be some mistake.
Oh man, I have been looking forward to this match all day. How random.
Even like fueling the fight by showing Sierra's blog about Duncan. I couldn't remember the name.
So, as a bit of extra incentive,
What's that for?
But if anything, this kind of brought them closer together. I mean, his initial plan still didn't fail because like he did get to see them fight, but they ended on good terms.
I only came back on the show to make things right with you.
Ow! I never really missed Duncan, but I really missed you.
hey!
If anything, I imagine like if we saw the whole fight, it would kind of be them fighting, but then like getting to the root of the problem and talking it out because they become inseparable after this. I mean, the next episode talks about the two of them talking about how they hope like one another wins the $1 million if they don't win the $1 million. This is also the episode where the merge finally happens, which makes their allyship so much more important because they choose to do the next challenge together by choice, even when knowing damn well only one person can actually win. So knowing this, when we get to Sunday Money Sunday, it just is infuriating that the writers decided to do this. I put in my notes to reword this, but I can't like not say it how it is. We get this gay ass scene.
Courtney!
Woo! Thanks, Gwen. I almost got my hair wet.
I would never let that happen. Your hair is fantastic.
No, your hair is. What's your secret?
I double condition.
Boring!
I know what you are.
But now for the episode where it all comes crashing down. If you noticed, I didn't mention episodes 9 or 10 because they are going to be very relevant to my analysis on this episode, so they'll be talked about. So Gwen returns from exile on Boney Island, which she chose to go to versus another night in the spa hotel with Chris. I just think it's so funny that no one likes rooming with Chris. Like, he has to room with them after Duncan destroyed his cottage.
It was not a cottage.
That was one of the funniest moments in this season, so that really tells you something. Now, the others welcome her back when she gets there, and Courtney kind of pulls her aside as the rest of them kind of walk away. And she mentions how Zoe is two-faced and says to Gwen they should shun her. Now, for context, in episode 9, when Gwen learned about the whole Cameron debacle. Basically, Mal wants Cameron to kiss Courtney so that he can drive a wedge between Scott and Courtney, who just started dating. Don't even get me started on Scott and Courtney. What? What was that? But he wanted Cameron to do it as strategy, you know, to get between them. And when given the perfect opportunity, he practically shoves Cameron onto her. So they're walking in the mine and Courtney falls because like Scott was shining a flashlight in her face, and so Scott jumps after her. Scott's one-liners were some of the funniest stuff in this season as well. But anyway, where like they fall into, Mal and Cameron are walking, so he takes it as the perfect opportunity to just be like, Cameron, do it, but like he doesn't really ask, he just shoves Cameron onto Courtney. Well, Gwen, you can imagine, wasn't too happy about this news, considering that is quite literally the reason Courtney held a grudge against her for so long and she had to gain her trust back. Yet it just seems like Courtney went out and did the same exact thing. Hypocritical. Without knowing the context of like Mal peer pressuring Cameron, I think I can like understand her anger to this situation. I would probably feel the same way. Because of this, Courtney asks if she's still mad about all the kissing she did, and Gwen reveals that she's really not mad, she just wants her head to still be in the game, considering their plans of, you know, getting to the final two together. Courtney immediately just reassures her, you know, saying in her words, not mine, "It's you and me right till the end."
Gwen, I promise. It's you and me, right to the end.
Things seem to really go back to normal for the girls after this. Gwen even talks about in the like confessional how it was all worth it, you know, getting Courtney's trust back and how she really missed this friendship. But it's soon after this that we first learn about the chart. Now, what chart, you may ask?
Yeah, everyone else was asking the same question.
Making a chart always helps clarify things nicely.
Now our final contestants are walking up to the challenge. Everything seems to be going great. You know, Courtney's with Scott and Gwen. They're having a fun time, laughing, when all of a sudden, Mal comes out of nowhere and just kind of puts Courtney on blast. He makes a reference to Courtney's chart, where Courtney has Scott drawn as a rat, because Scott says like, oh, I'm strong as an ox or something like that, the expression. And then Mal is like, oh, you mean a rat? Oh, you haven't seen this? Yeah, she has a chart.
We don't know where he got this chart.
Where is this girl known for keeping her papers?
Don't get me wrong, he's not perfect. I made a little list of the things that need to change.
I mean, episode 10 is iffy, but even then there are just no signs Courtney wants to ditch Gwen or Scott, or is even using them in general. There's only some jealousy on her end that Gwen could be forming an alliance with Zoe, which she obviously still seems to be concerned with in the beginning of this episode. Episode 9 is where she started dating Scott, and it left Gwen alone in the search for Chris. So naturally she partnered up with Zoe's friend group, and so they actually got to spend some time together. So of course, if you're gonna ditch your friend to do the challenge with someone you're dating, then your friend is not gonna go up to you the next challenge. She's gonna go up to whoever she did it with last time. Like, even Cameron debacle aside, which kind of drive a wedge between them, surprisingly, because it's Scott. And obviously Gwen didn't know about this whole thing yet, so she just considered they were still dating. Mind you, they hadn't even been dating like a day. In Scott's words, not mine, it was their 2-hour anniversary. So her going up to Zoe rather than Courtney makes a ton of sense. But seriously, you think a list like this would be totally premeditated? Like, shouldn't we have seen her writing this out, like crafting this chart a couple episodes ago? Or hell, even like when Gwen first proposes the alliance, which she totally seems opposed to. So it's not like she's been plotting this since the beginning. If they had made her seem opposed to it and been like, oh wait, I can use this to my advantage in like the confessional, then it would all kind of make sense. But it's just like, whoa, where did this come from? The chart just feels so out of nowhere, you know, kind of random, frankly. Like, if we take Mal's villain arc, for example, which, can I just say, he is not scary. When are we gonna talk about how Mal was just able to beat Alejandro so easily? The literal best villain of all time in Total Drama. And when Duncan starts to realize, you know, the connection between Mal and Mike, he literally is scared shitless. But all that man does is break stuff. What was he sent to juvie for? Infringement of someone's property? I actually meant destruction. No guys, Mal is not like duking it out with copyright. But Mal overtaking Mike's body was like hinted at and like very a premeditated thing in the series. We could just assume it was coming at some point. Not that this plot point was any good, but like the point still stands. So Chris explains the challenge, which is where this episode gets the name Sunday Muddy Sunday. They are just making sundaes for his starved interns. Sometimes I really wish they could swear on this show, because when Courtney tries to talk to Gwen, like immediately after, about what happened, her comeback is literally calling her Chartney.
Seriously, it was not serious.
Save your incredibly bad breath, Chartney.
Times like this, I'm reminded it's a kid's show, because it doesn't feel that way. With everyone knowing about her chart, her confessionals are just especially mean and like hasty, especially towards Gwen all of a sudden.
Ugh, why can't Gwen just be impressed with my genius and go along with it? Huh, no wonder she has such a hard time keeping friends.
As if they were not just best friends, borderline lovers.
They were lovers in my heart.
Where was the foreshadowing for this at all beforehand? What I mean is, like, the villain really jumps out of her, like, in this episode from the get-go. The moment he reveals the chart, she just, like, her whole demeanor changes. And this interaction at the swamp is just an example.
My foot is stuck. Oh, too bad. If we were a team, I'd totally help you. But not in a million years. Bye.
They absolutely did this girl so dirty. I feel like there's a lot of people who try to make her out to be the villain in like the past seasons, but she's really not. She was just a nice girl who happened to have somewhat of a big ego, but she still managed to have great strategy, and she brought a lot to her team. You know, a bit of a perfectionist, but at the end of the day, she was pretty skilled in the things she did in the show. There's a CIT experience. She knew how to play music. And she was even pretty athletic and agile in like the second season. We really get showcased to that. Over the span of this franchise, we really just like watched her turn into a selfish person who started manipulating and cheating others, you know, for her personal gain, because she became so desperate and obsessed with winning this game. And this season in particular shows us her spiral and absolute character derailment. She really just became a shell of the character she used to be by the end of it. She's not the only one, obviously, but, you know, we're focusing on this episode today. Like, we have Lindsay, who in the very first episode of this season literally voted herself out. Like, yes, Lindsay is a stereotypical, you know, dumb blonde, but she's a lot more to that in her character, you know? She's not just that stupid. A key example being in season 1, you know, the iconic moment where she stood up to Heather and stood up for herself. Now, I could go on about Courtney's unfair character arc, and, you know, I'm clearly not the only one who's taken note of this. There are a ton of good video essays on YouTube that, you know, go in more into detail. But the worst part is probably just knowing the writers were originally going to have her win this season. How does it go to she's a winner to this absolute travesty, this mess? I can't even imagine the writer's room for this show. Like, how is it real? But back to the episode. Courtney and Gwen end up crossing paths again, and this is near the cafeteria when they're gathering their various ingredients for their sundaes. And Gwen mentions she's willing to give Courtney another chance, and even get Zoe to vote for Scott with her. However, there is one condition. She will only do this if Courtney votes herself out, which is immediately such a joke to Courtney. I really think that Gwen said this out of spite. I saw some other video essays where people are like, no, why would Gwen do that? That's so dumb. Like, I don't really think Gwen was being serious. I think she said it out of spite because at this point she knows all Courtney cares about is herself. She's too selfish to basically do such a thing to herself. But on that note, another like moment that stood out to me that seemed really out of character for Courtney was when Mal destroys the rest of like the chocolate sauce, and it leaves Scott and Courtney with like no chocolate sauce for their sundaes, and that happens to be the last ingredient. Scott puts dirt on his ice cream and moves on because that would have been his second choice. You know, Courtney ends up resulting to putting hot burnt chocolate coals on her ice cream, which causes it to melt. Soon after this, Courtney's sundae gets shat on by a bird, and there's this confessional. I'm just gonna show the clip for context.
Ew. Meh. What? It's for Chris's interns, and he never feeds them anyway, as if they're going to be picky. They should thank me.
Obviously, I've seen this episode multiple times before, but this specific clip, I was taken aback. My jaw was on the floor, I'm not gonna lie. Like, what do these writers do to her? Anyways, somehow Courtney manages to win the challenge, and Chris ends up revealing the twist is that Courtney will have to eat her shitty sundae. So while everyone else is like chowing down, you know, in the race for immunity, because it's whoever finishes their sundae first will get immunity and win the challenge, everyone, including Scott, who used dirt instead of chocolate again, Courtney is just standing there because, in her words, not mine, she's not gross like the others. And Chris, despite not feeding his own interns, actually calls her out on this. you know, because he thinks himself that, you know, that Sundae, he would never feed that to his interns.
Maybe feed them then, because it looks like you're not feeding them at all.
But like, if Chris wouldn't even feed them that, then you know you've done fucked up. So by the end of this episode, Courtney is really just a shell of the character she once was. She's desperately begging and pleading desperately for Gwen to not vote her out. Even though she was a bad friend, she admits this. Again, Gwen isn't opposed to that, but, you know, as long as she votes herself first. She says this knowing that Courtney would never do that. Courtney is just selfish, and, you know, we've realized at this point. So in the end, Courtney is actually eliminated and flushed with her shitty Sundae down the toilet. Also, despite this shot of, like, them waiting for the marshmallow ceremony to, like, commence, literally, there's just this random jump cut, and Courtney is being voted off. Wow, what a shocker. No one saw that coming. Also, Chris mentions that Scott and Courtney are both on thin ice because apparently Scott finished dead last. But if you, let's just rewind.
I don't care who wins as long as it's not Courtney.
Shortcut!
So, you see who's last? Mal. Mal is last. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys somewhat enjoyed as we suffered through that. Let me know your thoughts on this episode and like your thoughts on All Stars in general. I'm genuinely like interested to hear it in the comments. I'm so excited to be making a Total Drama video. I've been wanting to. I'm honestly surprised I hadn't sooner. And I hope to make more videos on this show in the future since it was like requested on my Google form, which will be linked in the description for anyone who wants to contribute future video ideas for the channel. I will see you guys in my next video.